Hello and welcome to the Superhero Hub. I'm Sam,
I'm Matt.
and today we're going to be doing something a little special, and that is called a special episode entitled,
Superhero Files.
yeah. So, this series is where we take a random, well, not a random, a kind of relevant character, I guess, from the comic books, and then we kind of give you the lowdown, hit you with the skinny, the 911 about said character. This character we're going to be doing is,
Legion.
yeah, Legion. I thought it'd be relevant to do because the TV shows come out based on him, so I figure for those kind of who don't know much about him, we'd kind of hit you with the deets. So, born David Charles Haller, the son of Gabrielle Haller and Charles Xavier. He is what is classed as an Omega level mutant. So the kind of class Omega level is kind of the most powerful mutants going, and there's kind of only a handful going.
Right, they're ridiculously powerful, basically like walking gods or something.
Yes,
The kind of mutants that the fear in the X-Men world is kind of bred around, where they could take over the world if they wanted to.
yeah. So these are kind of characters that their abilities kind of consist of either really powerful psionic manipulations, energy or matter manipulation, immortality, and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, the kind of Psylocke's classed as Omega level, which was a surprise to me.
Psylocke.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Mm.
Rachel Summers, the
Yeah,
daughter of Cyclops, Scott Summers, and Jean Grey. Uh,
yeah. She's from an alternate world. That's kind of confusing. And Cable as well, except Cable is kind of limited by the techno-organic virus.
yeah,
Jean Grey with the
Dark
Phoenix.
Phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah,
Elixir. Vulcan, who's the brother of Scott Summers, and
Havoc.
yeah, Franklin Richards,
Yeah.
and a couple of others. Couple of others. There's got to be more. There's just probably they haven't really like been founded yet. So, as with other mutants, David's abilities manifested at a time of trauma. Obviously, his parents met in an Israeli psychiatric facility where Charles was trying to help cure survivors of the Holocaust. So, kind of still hanging about in that area after Charles left. She
Yeah.
kind of didn't tell him she was pregnant, gave birth to David, and kind of grew up around there. So, during that time, there was terrorist attack. Which David was caught up in, and the person who perpetrated it, Jamal Karami, um, died, and as such, with his powers manifested, he absorbed the personality of Karami into him, and that's kind of how his powers work, either through people dying near him or through telepathy. He kind of absorbs their personality, and that personality, whatever it is, controls a different ability. So his class is Omega level because literally he has multiple personalities, and each one of them controls powers. So he's got hundreds of personalities in his head, hundreds of abilities. So, I mean, his potential's limitless.
Yeah, he's a bit like, I think if you kind of mix, if you've seen Heroes, if you mix Peter Petrelli and Sylar into one, so he's a nut job, but he's got the absorbing thing. He doesn't literally have to kill someone to take their powers. He just absorbs it and develops a personality that can control that specific power.
Yeah. So the kind of three main kind of personalities starting off are Jack Wayne, who controls the telekinesis part. Karami, obviously, who does the telepathy, and a girl called Cindy, who controls the pyrokinesis. So obviously, he has a ton of other abilities over the years that he kind of develops now because of his kind of mental issues, Dr. Nemesis and Reed Richards, along with another person, developed a neural kind of bracelet that he wears, and when he keys into the bracelet, it kind of it affects his brain and kind of allows that personality to take over, so he can kind of use said abilities. So, I mean, some of the personalities, reality warping, prehensile tongue, obviously pyrokinesis, telekinesis, and telepathy, energy manipulation, flight, immortality to a degree, healing, so stuff like that.
Yeah, the thing with Legion as a character is you can basically have him do anything you want. You can just, any writer could come in and develop a new person and a new power for him. It might be, but he's so all powerful that might be part of the reason he's not as big as a character as you might think he is. As you might think, with Legion being the son of Professor Xavier, he's a massive character in the X-Men mythos and he's constantly been around down the years. He hasn't, really. He's not that big of a character. He hasn't been involved in the story that much. His most famous involvement in the X-Men stories is probably the Days of Future Past thing. He's the one that went back in time and accidentally wound up killing Xavier and setting Days of Future Past in motion. That's probably his most famous contribution to the X-Men. He's popped up again down the years. He's been, but inevitably his story always kind of ends with, I must delete myself because I'm too powerful, and then in a few years down the line he comes back.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting really, because for a kind of big character like that, being the son of Charles Xavier, his first appearance was in issue number 5 of the New Mutants, which was in 1985.
Yeah, and it's kind of, I guess the idea was to kind of add something new to Xavier's character, because Professor Xavier is basically a father to all of the X-Men, especially Cyclops and Jean Grey, and that could add something to him to give him an actual kid who he can't control, he can't help. The one mutant, there's been a few, but above all, the one mutant he can't actually help control is his own son.
Yeah,
and they have a similar thing with Cassandra Nova being the evil twin of Xavier. Even Xavier himself kind of went nuts with the Onslaught storyline, and that's just kind of a continuation of that. David's a cool character, but he plays more of a bit of a plot device for Xavier because he's so powerful. You just can't really build a story around him until the TV show, which is doing a good job of it at the minute. So maybe, depending on how big of a hit that show might be, perhaps he will become a bigger character in the comics.
Yeah, it's interesting because in the comics in 1991 they were gonna bring him in to be a main character in the X-Force storyline, but they chose not to do it because it's kind of in that way, because being so powerful, it's kind of hard to kind of bring this guy who can do all these things and then not kind of overwhelm the story with him. And the problem is with that, you either make it all about him or you kind of sell out and kind of limit what he can do, but in doing so it's kind of wasting the potential.
Right, there's no point. He's crazy, which is difficult in itself. How do you build a team around, if you bring him into the X-Force, if you bring him into there, how do you kind of legitimize the fact you have a nut job on your team? And how is that meant to work? How can the team trust him to go into the situation when he's a nut job? And B, he's so powerful. It's the Superman problem times 10, because he can literally do anything.
And the problem is as well, it's kind of what you see isn't necessarily what you get. You say him being like a nut job and that, but the problem is at any given time, really, if he's not in control of his powers, he could literally be multiple people at any time, which is a big problem.
Yeah, and it's a difficult thing to write for, and that he is a continuous. It's as a similar thing with Proteus, who's Moira McTaggart's kid. It's these people that Xavier can't save, and his son being one of them, and Cyclops being this absolute Boy Scout will follow anything he can say, but his actual kid, his offspring. In a way, it's kind of sounds harsh as they, but in a way, it's kind of Xavier's fault. If you're so powerful, should you really have children when you can have this kind of situation occur? He's essentially his. I know he didn't know about it, but essentially his son is a god.
Yeah, that's really kind of the issue there, because I mean you could apply that to anyone. I mean Reed Richards and Susan Storm giving birth to
True, but they're not mutants.
Yeah, but they're kind of you got to think in that. I mean, Reed Richards is a smart guy. You've got to think, somewhere down the line, something's going to go off. Especially kind of Scott Summers and Jean Grey as well. I mean, with the kind of Phoenix personality going on, to kind of.
Well, true, but I mean, in the main 616 world, they never had kids together.
Yeah. It's interesting, well, because in like another alternate universe as well, Legion's the son of Charles Xavier and Moira McTaggart.
I think that makes more sense, and I think if they were writing Legion now, if Legion was created now, I think he probably would have been a kid of Moira McTaggart. But it was the 80s, and the movies hadn't happened, and the cartoons hadn't happened yet. So, and also there's always been this backstory with both Magneto and Xavier, where they were off philandering in Europe during the war and just after it, until basically they formed the X-Men and the Brotherhood. So I'm sure they got lots of ladies and kids somewhere. It's the same thing, basically the same principle with Magneto and Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Polaris.
Yeah. So, do you think there's anything else you'd like to add?
No, because like I said, it's interesting. It was very interesting and odd to hear they were making a show about Legion.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, because obviously in the first episode of Legion, you kind of had like fire kicking off. Like when he's in the pool, there's a blast of fire and everyone kind of gets immolated all around him and stuff like that, and all like dead bodies in the thing. And it's interesting that you got to think that kind of the person who controls the pyrokinesis personality in the comic books, Cindy, is kind of quite close to the kind of blonde girl in it who's called Sid. So whether you would kind of make the kind of jump from there to there, but I think in the kind of comic book history, looking at it, I think there's a lot of things that they've drawn from as well. I think it's interesting whether in the TV series they're going to draw the fact that he kind of gets the abilities from the people who die around him, whether they'll show that.
I think so. There's no doubt in my mind that Aubrey Plaza is going to be, spoilers if you haven't seen it, but Aubrey Plaza character dies in the pilot, but then comes back in flashbacks. I think flashbacks. It's hard to know what's going on in that show. There's no doubt in my mind she's a personality. I think Sid is a personality as well. At the moment, I'm still trying to figure out who is and who isn't.
So yeah,
like I said, it was very odd to hear they were making a show about Legion. He's really not that big of a character in the X-Men, so it was almost baffling, because we heard that Fox basically went on bended knee to Marvel to allow them to make an X-Men TV show. There's going to be two of them, because I won't bore you all with the details, but basically Fox had the movie rights to the X-Men, but don't have the rights to the TV, so they had to go to Marvel, who still held the TV rights to the X-Men. And they said yes, and then the first show we hear about them making, it's Legion.
I think it's interesting because I think the kind of concept behind Legion and stuff like that, I think that's a lot different to what many other kind of comic book TV shows are about. So I think it can be more kind of a cerebral series kind of drama, as opposed to just like, every week like as a criminal pops up and then the main character goes and stops them. You know what I mean?
That certainly is a good idea. I'm liking the show so far. It's just, when you hear they're going to make an X-Men TV show, you think it's either going to be about the X-Men or Magneto hunting Nazis or something. You don't think it's going to be a show about a character pretty much no one knows. But kudos to them. I'm enjoying the show so far.
Yeah. So that's pretty much a couple tidbits, a couple facts that you can kind of think about, and kind of if it enhances your viewing experience or anything like that. So we just thought we'd drop just a couple things here and there to kind of add on to the character, things that maybe you didn't know before. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. I'm Sam,
I'm Matt.
and this is the Superhero Hub.